Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Amira's Champion Every Voice podcast, where we elevate the voices of educators, experts, and thought leaders who are creating meaningful experiences for students every day. I'm really excited about today's conversation because we're talking to one of my mentors about literacy at scale, from state policy to the classroom, and what it truly takes to support students, teachers, and leaders in powerful ways. I'm joined today by educational leadership expert Dr. Christopher Blair, and as I always say, let's get this reading party started. Welcome, Dr. Blair.
Good morning. Thank you. I appreciate you having me on this dynamic podcast. I just love you, Jaclyn. So I really appreciate it.
Yes, sir. I love you too, Dr. Blair. I think this conversation has just been a really long time coming. I know we both can't wait to dive right in. But before we do, I'd love for you to share with our audience a little bit about your background and what you're doing in education right
All
now.
right. Thank you. Currently, I am still in the field of education. I'm a former school superintendent with over 25 years of educational leadership experience. Like most superintendents, I started out in the classroom, spent years as an English teacher. I taught middle school and high school English. And from there, got into school administration, have been school principal, central office administrator, but I'm still a teacher at heart. Because as a former superintendent, one of my core practices was to really focus on instructional leadership. How do we lead in the classroom? So now that I am post superintendency, I am the senior executive for research and development. It's an educational consulting company. And we work with profit, nonprofit, for profit educational entities. We really work with any CEO, superintendent, or district staff, as well as in that classroom level, working on what are those teacher practices that really bring about high quality outcomes for all scholars in the building. So I've been doing that work since superintendency about 3 years. And really, that's what landed me back into your circle of influence as it relates to just being a thought leader and how we're moving forward with other tools that are assisting in how we're helping the scholars, but also what are we putting into the hands of these educators, from the classrooms to our paraprofessionals, even some of our support staff that look like those central office people that support the work. So that's why we're here today, to really talk about how we moving forward as the tools change. How do we evolve as educators, making sure we're doing the best for scholars?
That's right, Dr. Blair. So many times, and I'm sure you're hearing this word over and over again. Well, these two words, AI and coherence. I want to hear from you and what you're seeing as you work with school districts and leadership teams across the nation. What are you seeing in the ways that leaders are using AI most effectively to bring coherence to their systems, to their organizational structure, as well as to their day to day leadership?
The word effective is what we're not seeing yet, right? Because it has to be measured, right? So I see a lot of use as relates to artificial intelligence, what people are doing to evolve from using email to now doing things that would take the internet's information, synthesize it for us, or quick, rapid responses to concerns or questions. We're used to the internet. We Google, have queries. But what I'm seeing now is that people are able to take this artificial intelligence that's trained by others. And right now, we're using things that others are training to figure out how to make our jobs simpler. So, for example, I'm seeing a lot of administrators using some of the tools that are AI just to say, how do I write a new email? How do I take a
Mhm.
paragraph that I've written and make it sound more professional? Right. So there are a lot of simple uses for the tools. But then I'm seeing some leaders, and again, and this is not tested to be valid and measured, as in measured, using AI that would pair their observation tools so that they're able to get more feedback rapidly with large piles of data or data files, right? Multiple teachers. So I'm seeing leaders do that at a principal level, central office level, but I don't believe it's effective. And I say effective in terms of making the work efficient, but also making the outcomes for scholars. There's a disconnect there, so that coherence doesn't exist yet. But I believe as more people learn how to train the AI versus letting AI models do the work, but learn how to create a model. And an
Right.
agent in this generative AI world will be more proficient in creating correlations that say, I did this as a school principal. This happened with the teacher, and the correlation is it went in the classroom with the scholar, evidenced by that scholar's work, task outcome, measurements for formative or informative, assessments, but we can see that correlation to that administrator's use. That's what we're looking for to create some
Right.
coherence.
Right. It's almost like two systems are being built and discovered at once. You've
Yeah.
got this AI and this core coherence with the resources and pieces that we're giving to students, but our thought leadership and our district leaders, we're still having to grow them in that area of
Yep.
making sure that they're embedding those AI pieces into the coherent
Mhm.
systems that they're having to
Right.
build, in
Right.
which our teachers and students have to operate and function within. So
Exactly.
you can see
Yep.
two systems
Yeah.
trying to be built.
Yeah.
And again, it's a give and take in both, because in some ways we're a little bit further ahead
Yep.
than the other. Two different pathways being built at once: the
Right.
student piece and the adult use case leadership piece.
Right, exactly. And
So,
when you say the use case, I think I know the questions we're going to talk about later on is, I think when we learn professionally how to make AI work for me as a professional in my role, I become more familiar with those systems that I have as a principal, whatever the system is. What am I taking people through, and how do I then integrate how comfortable I am with the tool to now helping me do other things with other people? So
mhm,
that's where I think it's still in the place of people are becoming comfortable in their own professional role and learning how to now take that so that it's still some sense of authentic work around what I do, but I now have tools that can be authentic in what we do. That's the
mhm.
trust that's being built around moving from personal to professional group or collaborative work with teams and other people.
That's right. And you're heading right into the next question, Dr. Blair, about AI as a side by side companion
Yeah.
and like a group expert or group builder, right? A
Yeah.
team builder.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've described AI as a side by side companion for leaders. Not that it can replace you, but it
Right.
can, increase your capacity. You always talked about building that capacity.
Yes.
It can very swiftly build capacity within the
Yeah.
right hands, the right leaders. So, what does it look like in real leadership work? And why is the framing essential for systems change when we think about AI as a side by side companion?
Yeah. Now you use some keywords, systems change, right? Because I've learned to be a better practitioner. I need to be a more reflective practitioner, right? And I think what we've learned from you and I, you're an expert coach, right? And we know that coaches ask great questions, right? And in asking questions, we want that person we're working with side by side to just discover what we could already know, right? Because your experience, when we bring a coach in, the coach has experience that, for example, you could be in a classroom and in 5 minutes determine teacher behavior, student behaviors, and a misalignment or the alignment, right?
Right.
And 1,000 things could go into your mind based on best practices, curriculum, or even the skillfulness of the teacher's use of language skills. There's a disconnect. But you could go into that coaching session and just share all of that. It
Mhm.
won't do that person you're talking to a lot of good if they don't come to it themselves. So you ask a
Right.
lot of questions. So what I've learned around AI is that when you use this as a side-by-side agent, and I'm not going to talk about not just the models that are created, right? We can throw out a lot of models. We have Chat,
Mhm.
we have Perplexity, we have Claude, we have a lot of tools out there. People are building those agents. But what I learned is that when I get the technology in hand and I learn how to build my own agent, when I
Mm.
say about agent is that this agent is being programmed to know what are my district's evaluation tools? What are the curriculums that my teachers are using? What are the expectations I have for lesson planning, student task, student discourse? I can
Mhm.
build an agent that will start to think like me when I'm in the classroom,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Start to see what I see. And I said that earlier because we know right now the models are just built to say, okay, Jackie, you can put something in, it'll share it back.
Mhm.
But also you could feed it as much
Yeah.
information,
Train
train
it.
it to be something, and it will do and work in that particular purpose. So when I say side by side, what I've learned is that I can take my agent that I've built, that it knows what I'm doing. When I go into a school, I'm going to collect 20 observations around a particular protocol. I now am going to use that agent to give me feedback on what it is that I saw based on my eyes and my perspective. I've already fed the agent what
Mhm.
it is that I need to be synthesizing. So it actually
Mhm.
starts to understand, it becomes a me, but also gives me feedback and says, okay, Dr. Blair, why don't you ask these questions? Why don't you do this? Because it's coaching me along. So not
Yes.
only is it helping me to be able to give great content and feedback to the school, the teacher, whomever I may have been working with, but also it's my companion that's helping
Mhm.
me become better at my praxis. So two things are happening. Side is for me to build my praxis as an instructional leader, now coach turned, transforming districts and working with other leaders. But also, how do I take this if I'm the executive director of teaching and learning? How do I now improve what I do, but also take these tools that now it becomes a side by side to my teachers so that they're improving what they do because they learn to build an agent
That's
that
right.
helps them understand I can take my student outcome data. Yes, we have to make sure we're protecting students, no identification information we put into these models, but it can become a side by side to that teacher, right?
Right.
Because you've trained it to what you want it to do. That's the power I think what we're moving into when we're talking about this generative, agentic type world is how do you train these bots the same way our phone is trained? It's listening to us now. Somebody
Mhm.
trained it to do that. Right?
Yeah.
So without going in detail, I think that's the power of where we're headed with this is how we as individuals start to understand the power of what we're being given or you purchase to be able to build these agents that can become your side by side, but also your district side by side, your school side by side, your teacher side by side, and your scholars side by side.
Right. As I think about all that you're sharing, Dr. Blair, I think about questions that our CEO often asks us and expectations that he has with us being an
Yep.
AI native company. He expects his employees to be that as well. And so he will often, every now and then, he'll ask, how are you using AI to increase your capacity and not just increase your capacity, but start to think about systems and things differently so that our company can continue to grow. And so this is the mindset of an AI native company. And I'm
Mhm.
hoping that in some way, this message that we're receiving inside of this company
Mhm.
reaches the children who are being
Yep.
educated today. And in some cases, unfortunately, in spaces where there are adults who are afraid of
Mhm.
AI and
Yep.
who don't understand it. So it's again that gap that we see with the resources that companies like ours provides where we are building coherent systems and we are being that side by side companion for teachers
Yep.
and making sure they've thought about it in a different way and helping them build small groups faster. But we've got to make sure that that mindset shift and that
Yep.
understanding that the leaders have that are adopting that same technology,
Mhm.
that they really have a firm grasp on the technology they've adopted
Mhm.
as well as the AI that they need to use
Yep.
to be better
Right.
leaders every day, right?
Yep.
And we talk about this AI bubble. I know this is not one of the questions we kind of
No,
prepped
it's
you.
fine. Let's go.
What is your thought on that, Dr. Blair? What is your thought about, the AI bubble and kind of what's happening and how fast and quickly things are developing in ed tech with the use of AI in schools?
Yeah. You're right. It's rapidly evolving. And it just didn't sneak up on us. It just has become we're aware of it, right? We didn't know that every time I'm gonna use this example, iPhone changed its, iOS system, it was doing something different with AI, right? It was already our cars, everything was already doing it, even our light bulbs, a lot of simple things. So it's not really a bubble, it's just now we're inside of it, right? And we were on the outside, now we're in it. So I think the thing that has to happen, you used a few words around trust, is that a lot of educators, everyone from the classroom to the central office, they think that if the AI or this agent or this robot knows everything, it could start to make its own decisions without me. It can start to control, right? We have a lot of science fiction out there. We have a lot of movies from 20 years ago where robots rule the world, right? They take it
Mhm.
over, right?
I Robot with Will
Right.
Smith. Yeah.
Right. Because that's the fear that, oh, it's going to be able to, move my money out of my account. It's going to be able to do this and do that. To some level of truth, yes. If you now program and give it power to access your bank account, there may be an opportunity there. Yes, it can do some things like that. But I think the fear of this being inside the bubble is like I'm going to lose control, right? And a lot of educational entities or institutions don't have policy around it yet, right? How do you govern? I said it earlier, information you're putting in it, right? I know that as I work with the models, I don't feed it sensitive data like date of birth, addresses, those things that are sensitive, social security numbers, because it's going into a system that has access to that information that can use it once you sign those thousands of agreement lines. You don't know what you're agreeing to. So we have to dismantle this, how you use it so that we get the fear level down, but we get the curiosity up. We get this piece of how can it make my job more efficient? And Jaclyn, we know this, that if you don't in certain instances embrace and become a part of it, it will replace you,
Oh,
right?
yes.
And in
Oh, yes.
terms of some of the things that it has the ability to do, certain jobs and industries will not be there anymore. I'm not saying it's going to replace teachers, but in certain instances, I'm going to go back to the power of a mirror. The reason I'm a fan of your tool is because you all have built an agent that can think, hear, respond, understanding miscues, giving corrections, all those things that a proficient educator, either your para, your tutor, or your certified teacher is able to do within a core reading program or with these practices.
Yep.
That's a powerful tool. Now, I'm not saying that it replaces a teacher, but it replaces a 20-minute small group session. You can now put a student right there.
Come on, Dr. Blair.
You know what I'm saying? But that's the power of saying that. But what I see is the curiosity for a teacher is that it helps me duplicate myself in other things. I'm
Yeah.
a fan of that. You said it earlier. When I'm talking about building capacity, I'm saying as I work with my team, how do I duplicate what I know in other people so that we're more efficient and get more done? So if I'm in this bubble, how do I duplicate myself in an agent that I can get more done and see more results? I can give more one-on-one feedback to this teacher because I know I have an agent that's helped me at the system level, the school level, the classroom level. Now, as a teacher, how do I differentiate for all of my 26, 28, 29 scholars? I duplicate myself in something.
Yep.
That's the
Yep.
bubble we're in. How do you take this curiosity, your sense of agency around, you know, you're the teacher, your intellect and your ability, feed this so that you're duplicating yourself. You've made 20 teachers in the classroom
Yeah.
that can support scholars individual, those scholars on L scholars, your special education scholars, your 504, you can differentiate for those scholars based on everything that you're sharing and what it's able to access your curriculum, your questioning, your small group, your activities, all those things can be fed in there. So I don't think the bubble is, we shouldn't be afraid of it. We should be curious of it, right?
Mhm.
To know
I
how to
agree.
make my work more efficient so that it's about the student every time. Is it about the school? It's the student
Yep.
sitting in the seat. Is it about them?
I was looking for a resource to help us at a time when we really, really needed help, Dr. Blair. That was my biggest thing. How can I help lighten the load of the
Mhm.
teachers? How do we make sure that even if everybody in this building is not trained in the science of reading yet,
Yes.
how can we make sure that our kids get the best,
Yeah.
most science of reading trained access and support that they
Yes.
can have? And it was the best decision that we could have made. And I'm happy every day
Right.
that we made the choice to be forward thinking when it came to meeting the needs of students.
Right. And I'm happy
So,
you did it. I'll just say it because the scholars in
thank
the
you.
seat are so important because another thing that we forget about is we have a lot of unskillful, uncertified, wonderful professionals in our buildings. And
Mhm,
every year they sit in front of the scholars and they do them disservice in terms of meeting the needs. Those scholars do move on because we have various ways in which we promote. And we know research says one bad year takes two great years. And so a
mhm,
lot of times teachers will give it their very best, these professionals we put in there, but they're not skillful. So if you take that perspective, how am I doing the very best of my scholars, putting a tool in hand, you're giving those scholars an opportunity to get that 1 year's worth of growth within that year. They're not missing out. So I love the fact that you say, how do we become creative to give those scholars what they need while we support the educators in the classroom, in the building with their PD, whatever the learning they're going through, but we don't need to do a disservice to those scholars because they're
that's
going to
right.
move on.
It's got to keep going. And I'm sure you probably experienced this with how my brain works. I'm good at kind of holding it in the road, but still building a better system along the side
Yes.
of it. And I'm kind of working through some things like that right now. So that never leaves me the ability to kind of have my thoughts wrapped around the state of how things are now and where we want to go.
Yep.
Speaking of where we want to go, how do they protect professional judgment and also ensure that AI strengthens leadership integrity rather than replacing their decision making?
Mhm. That's good
How do
stuff. Yeah, and that's
they?
layered because, a lot of trust in the classroom when we work with teachers, it's still built on things that are fact, right?
Mhm,
A lot of our systems, we know we have quality teaching standards. We have different rubrics that says this is what instruction looks like when you're preparing for instruction. This is what it looks like when you're delivering. So we have these truths that make it foundational for teacher practices or leaders. We have our instructional leadership standards, our national standards. Even for professional learning, we have all these standards. So if
mhm,
we take any of the tools we're using and they're built on those foundations, Trust is that as Dr. Blair is using a side-by-side companion, that companion is still building it on nothing is arbitrary, nothing is capricious, it is non-judgmental. This is what it is based on the standard, based on what we're expecting. Even if we have an instructional framework, we have expectations for classroom routines. This is what I'm looking for. Although I may be using a tool that can help me synthesize my notes, give me great comments and feedback, it's still built on what are the practices that we say were a 1, 2, 3, and 4,
Mhm.
right? Teacher behaviors, student behaviors. What are those things? So when I'm speaking the language of the what, not the how I feel, what I thought, no, it's the what I saw. How does it measure up against what we expect? What you did, how does it measure up to what the behaviors are? How the scholars reacted, their response based on what outcomes they received. We're building trust because it's not
That's right.
Christopher, it's not Jaclyn. It's very objective, right? So
Mhm.
that's where we have to go into this, idea. I'm still a non-judgmental observer. I don't care what classroom. I'm not going to say, oh, what felt good in that class. No, I'm
What did I
right.
see?
Right. What did I see? What did I hear? Right. What did I read? Right. What did I determine to be based on this? So a lot of
Mhm.
that trust has to do with educators still understanding what your role is, how that role is measured, and how do we give feedback either in a coaching support role that's non-judgmental, that's here for growth, or if it's an opportunity where you're going to be scored as a professional. It's very formative. It's still based on this tool, right? So we can take that to any level to say, I believe that's how we're building this sense of using these tools, building trust. And then another part of this, and I did a little bit of research last week to say, how many districts out here are really using AI from a standpoint of having policy around it? How do they
Mm.
expect leaders to use it? Very scarce, right? Because a lot of people are still learning it, and you have pockets within a district using it. Some principals over here doing this, some doing this, based on either personal, professional, or within their curriculum or what have you.
Right.
But then how do districts start to think about it in a way that they have these parameters that educators know can be trusted, right?
Mhm.
It's not just doing anything. We're not going to start eavesdropping through the camera and
Right.
synthesize information and now use it for your evaluation and feedback that 16 children got up out of their seat 18 times during the class. Right? So we're not using AI like that, right? It's
Right.
not spying on you. So once you start to think of what districts have to enter into is and schools, what are these policies and parameters that help that trust and also build this sense of coherence that we know transparently what we're doing with AI in our school, in our building, right? Even when teachers bring a new idea to the table, okay, let's vet that against our policies. Are we
That's
going to
right.
use this as a school, or is it something teachers could use on their own? Because teachers, without those policies, could be violating privacy rights. They could be violating things that come with FERPA. A lot of violations could happen when you start using these tools where you're feeding inside information to outside entities. So
That's
I know
right.
that's a whole nother part of it, but that has to do with trust to me, which is that next level of thinking. Like you say, we're over here working, but I'm still leading with the forward mindset. What's to come? If
That's
I'm
right.
not out here thinking and investigating that while we're on this side of the road, I still got to know it's another lane to this. And I have to be in that lane as well. And I have to be investigating and figuring out those next steps for my class, school, district, or what have you.
Our CEO did a presentation a couple of weeks ago in Texas, and it was on not all AI is created equal. And I was
Hmm.
like, this sounds really interesting. And he talked about the importance of what school districts should be looking for as
Yep.
they're vetting AI resources, just like you're mentioning, Dr. Blair. And he mentioned that a lot of times districts will be familiar with a brand or an AI
Mhm.
tool, but they're not really familiar with looking under that hood and determining where is the data going, who
Yep.
owns the data. And there were very
Yep.
specific questions that he provided. It was almost like a
Mhm.
master class of sorts
Yep.
in Texas. And it was just eye-opening to me, even working at an AI native company, additional questions that I may not have
Mhm.
thought of as I
Right.
was looking at tech when I was chief of schools or working in another district. And I think the best decision makers right now in school district leadership and
Mhm.
even states are the ones that are asking those hard
Mhm.
questions. People fear
Yep.
what is unknown, right?
Right.
So the
Right.
more answers we can get, the deeper the questioning
Mhm.
concerning the tools that we have, I think the better chance you have of building that trust, that foundational trust that has to be there.
And you did mention how do you make sure that it's not interfering or you're making great judgments? I believe that when I'm working with one of the agents that I have, that agent sometimes can hallucinate. So I have to trust but verify, right? I have to make sure that what's being shared is still authentic to the practices that are aligned with this rubric, with this coaching model, within this curriculum. So I have to verify that information, right? I just can't trust that what it just sent me and I just shoot it out, right? You
Mhm.
have to still vet information. You have to still vet what it's asked, what it's sharing with you, right?
Mhm.
So that people know that they're reading it thinking, wait a minute, this is not right, because they know their expertise, it misaligned, right? So there's a part of it where you just cannot trust that the agent or this information or whatever processes or system you're using the bot or the agent for, that it's
Mhm.
going to be valid, right?
Several times I'll go back and say, well, wait a minute, what about this piece? Or did we consider this?
Yep.
Like really like a thought partner. I'm
Yeah.
talking
Like a
to it.
friend.
I even sometimes use it as a movie companion.
Yeah.
If I'm watching a really, mysterious movie and I want to know what's happening next, and I'll go back and forth about this and how can we connect this? And you can
Yeah.
press back against it and say, wait a minute, this is incomplete,
Yep.
or
Yep.
there's a thought that you didn't consider. And sometimes, Dr. Blair, as I'm giving it ideas, or as you might be giving it ideas of things you want to work on, it'll ask you, hey,
Yep.
I also noticed that you did it, because it's become
Mhm.
trained on how our minds connect
Right.
things because
Yeah.
of what we've shared with it. It really
Yeah.
is interesting to train it on your
Yeah.
thought patterns.
Yeah. I know this has nothing to do with it, but I have a daughter in college. She's in, chemistry, so she's a science major. And I've trained her to build a study buddy, right?
Mhm.
I said, take your professor's syllabus, put it in there, what you're working on, take your curriculum, I have it ask you questions, give you information, make you study guides, a lot that she's now doing that she could have done with a tutor or side by side over in academic services or from her class. But she's now building this study buddy. And she's like, Dad, wow, it's giving me visuals, it's giving me modules, it's giving me this.
So, as we begin to wrap up, Dr. Blair, for leaders who want to use AI to bring coherence to their system or even to their daily practice or even to their school, but they feel overwhelmed right now and they really don't know where to get started and they might even be afraid, what's the first step that they could take, Dr. Blair?
Yeah. I'm always looking for a problem of practice, right? What's happening that I'm struggling with in either my day-to-day operations, something within my job description, something that I have as a weakness. I don't know if it's conflict resolution or if it's communication skills, or if it's even trying to figure out how my email just always stay loaded with things I don't understand. I would say find a problem or practice you're having in your profession and then pair that with a tool to start to see how it's solving something for you, how it's making it you more proficient, or even what we say on this side of your praxis is improving, right? You're getting better in something because I believe that, confidence just doesn't happen. Confidence is built on falling forward, understanding success. It's like those when we're coaching, you want that little bit, and then you want a little bit more. You're building the
Yep.
confidence of a teacher when you set this small goal, another goal, another goal, another goal. So if I can personally find a place to reflect, what are my problems of practice I'm experiencing right now as a principal, right? Is it the fact that I maybe don't have time to work with my reading coaches around some of the elements of reading and reading feedback? Well, can I get that to help me have my coaches give me notes so that I can help synthesize and it can help me quickly get through the
Mhm.
feedback to know I know that they're working with these teachers that we've tiered to support. I can clearly know, okay, we have 4 teachers over here. This is their main problem of practice because that helped me manage my time.
That's right.
I'm over here putting out, buses, butts, and books and all this other stuff. I haven't had time to really look at the notes from the coaches, right? Or I'm meeting with them and it's like it's going over my head because we have a child that was hurt yesterday and I'm thinking about getting to the parent meeting, right? So it could be any problem of practice that you're having in your profession that you want to become more effective and efficient. That will help build your confidence so that when you're working with groups of other people and you're even a tool could come across your school and you're saying this is a problem of practice for us, now you have that sense of experience that you now are more comfortable with because you're using it. My use case has improved because I as a consultant was trying to find ways to be more efficient, right?
Mhm.
Finding ways to go from, and you could do this, you go from I've been in 4 states in 3 days. You here, then tomorrow you're here, then you're over here, then you're over here. And you have and your brain is moving because I'm moving from CEO leadership to coaching meeting sessions. Now I'm in 20 classroom observations looking for how many questions are being asked at tiered,
Mhm.
I mean, at Bloom taxonomy level 3 in the math class.
Mhm.
That's 3 different things that's happening in 3 different days.
In 3 different states,
Right, three
maybe
different
even
days.
more.
So, okay, Chris, what is your problem of practice? I do encourage people to say, what's the beginning step is how are you using it in your own profession? Even if you want to say how are you using it personally, right? Are you doing anything in your personal life using your phone differently with an AI tool? Right? Even if it's for managing your finances, even if it's for helping you automate bills, something that you can say you're becoming comfortable with because it's a problem for you personally, professionally. And I promise you, after that, and you and I said it just with this technology, the more you use it, the more you get familiar with it, right? Just like we used to say, the more you read, the more you love to read. Just keep doing it. And because the world of AI is going to either run us over but we know we can't be left behind when it comes to
Right.
how our scholars are using it, how teachers are using it, and the administrators running the schools, the administrators at the central office, those who are even in state government running our schools, they have to start to embrace it. And you can't act like it's going to go away because it will not.
That's right. I think, Dr. Blair, we talk often about how we are preparing students today for careers that don't exist.
Don't.
And so my heart goes out to students in schools
Mhm.
where they're not being allowed access. And I know that that is happening. And so I would just challenge other leaders in this call. And if you have a challenge to issue as well,
Mhm.
Dr. Blair, I would just challenge other leaders to think about, the gap that's going to be there for students who are learning in schools to use
Mhm.
AI responsibly versus those who are just being told, no, you can't access it at all.
Right.
Companies like the one that I work for today, school districts like the one that Dr. Blair is seeing across the nation, they're looking for
Mhm.
people who can do more with AI than
Yep.
just toning an email. They're looking
Yep.
for people that can create and fast track things. So
Mhm.
the need to be a systems thinker, the need to have passion, the
Mhm.
need to have some base knowledge, that doesn't go away.
Mm-mm.
But you had better well be preparing yourself to partner with some AI
Mhm.
companion so that you can compete, because
Mhm.
that's what this is. This
Mhm.
is not about it's going to take over. It's about being able to
Yep.
adopt AI tools and resources so that you can compete globally, because your neighbors,
Mhm.
people in the district next door, they're accessing it. And what we don't want is for our children to be left behind because we tied their hands.
Right, right. And this would be my final comment around it as we encourage educators is that, we knew AI, but we saw it as predictive models, right? You and I both back in the day using any of those tools where you could take an assessment and it would tell you what the child's predicted performance was. That was AI. But we just was like, oh, the algorithm, it tells us. And then when I used to use that word 10 years ago, algorithm, people are like, what are you talking about? Well, it's because it's looking at the questions that you've answered and it's already predicting that you're going to miss the next ones because it's asked you 5 within the same track or skill. So it's predicting your future performance and it can shut the test off for you, right? We know that with AI. We know it with even nurses knew it when they would take so many questions for their boards and it was shut down. That was a predictive model. But now what educators have to learn is the next generation is generative. These things are not predicting, they're creating. So we got to take our mind from it's already in your school, but now it's moving to this generative piece. It's moving to a place where it's not just taking data you're putting in, it's taking data and helping you create something that you didn't expect to come out. And that's okay. So it's going to evolve like this. So my encouragement to the educators is it was already in your building. It was already there. It's already happening, but you were buying those tools that people were creating. You were embracing them through their training, but now you have to say what systems do you have that need to be generative, that need to move to you create to make your evaluation systems work seamlessly so that there's a correlation between this teacher practice, this task in the class, and now it aligns to more outcomes for our scholars because they're doing more of this. AI will help generate that tool, that process, that feedback, those next levels for students to learn. That's the embracing that has to happen so that we're not, like you say, not in this model being left behind, but we're now evolving to where we know it's a part of who we are, what we're doing, and it's everywhere. Be aware of what's already there and now be open to how those models are shifting and how your work could now be shifting to this world of using agents, bots, and other things in a way that, one, like you said before, we're more efficient in our work and we're effective and we can measure that effectiveness. And that's the next level we're trying to get to. is what we're doing effective when it comes to students learning more, students mastering standards, students matriculating through grades, and actually going on and using prior knowledge, current learning for next level learning?
Awesome. Well, Dr. Blair, two things. One is, what is leading joy to you?
Oh, wow. I have a smile on my face because I'm within a purpose, right? So it took me years to figure out what I liked, right? Meaning, what am I seeking the universe to bring back to me? So when it brings back to me an opportunity to engage with a person like Jaclyn Brown, right? That's joy. Working with teachers, that brings me joy, right? Because it's that fulfillment. It's that you're actually living in the purpose, the moment, right? Now, there's sadness and everything, right? But I can still find joy in purpose, fulfillment. And then the sense of this energy around love, right? When you love something, you get energy from it. You get this sense of connection. I love education, so it energizes me. So when I think about joy, is that if you are confused around your purpose, what fulfills you, what your passions, you will be short of joy, right? Because even in education, you and I both know you can have a horrible thing that happens in the school, but because it's still your purpose, you're still fulfilled by it, it didn't take your joy, right? If we get religious, my mother used to say, this joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me, word can't take it away. There's something that it's not about a thing, a person, or happening. It's about a place that I'm in mindset. I'm in this place that, I'm not angry because something happened. It was bad, but things returned for my higher good, right? So that's I'm in this place of joy, right? So that love, peace, fulfillment, whatever those things are that gives you that inner peace, that fulfillment, and and it brings you money, right? It brings you
Yes.
resources, right? It does that as well, right?
All the good things. All the good things. Well, Dr. Blair, I have smiled so much in this conversation with you today. It has just been such a joy. And we always end with our signature Amira statement. Let's get this reading party started. Can you give me your best? Let's get this reading party started, Dr. Blair.
Let's get this reading party started.
Dr. Blair, thank you so much for sharing your insight, your wisdom, your leadership, and your joy with us today. Your perspective reminds us all that the lasting literacy change is only going to happen when policy, practice, and people are truly aligned. To our listeners, thank you for joining us for another episode of Amira's Champion Every Voice podcast. Keep supporting our educators and keep giving every child a chance to become a reader. Until next time.